I found it the day after my mom died, hidden behind her bedroom mirror. A letter. Sealed. Untouched. Waiting. And on the front, my name. Written in handwriting I hadn't seen in over 30 years. My dad's. The man I was told didn't care, didn't stay, didn't want me. But the date on that envelope? The day I was born. That's when everything stopped making sense. Because if he really didn't care, why write me a letter at all? And if he did, why would my mom hide it for 34 years? I hadn't even opened it yet. But somehow I already knew. This was about to change everything. I grew up with a very simple story. My dad left. That's what my mom told me, and that's what I believed. There were no long explanations, no emotional conversations, just that one sentence that closed the topic every time it came up. He made his choice. And after a while, I stopped asking. Because every time I tried, her tone would change. Not angry, just firm. Final. Like there was nothing more to say. So I built my life around that idea. That he didn't want to stay. That he didn't want me. And over time, it became easier to accept than to question. My mom did everything on her own. She worked hard, kept things together, made sure I never felt like I was missing anything. At least, not on the surface. She was strong, independent, in control. And I respected that. So I never pushed too far. But looking back now, there were signs. Small things I didn't notice at the time. Like how there were no pictures of my dad anywhere in the house. Not even one. Or how every time his name came up, the conversation would end almost immediately. No stories. No memories. Just silence. At the time, I thought that silence meant he didn't matter. Now, I'm not so sure. Because if he really didn't matter, why hide a letter from him? For 34 years. Right behind the mirror I saw every single day. And the more I thought about it, the more one question kept coming back. What was in that letter? That my mom didn't want me to see. Wasn't even looking for it. I was just trying to clean up. Fold clothes. Sort papers. Do something, anything, to keep my mind from sitting still. That's when I noticed the mirror. It looked normal at first, but something felt off. It wasn't hanging straight. Just slightly tilted. Like it had been moved, more than once. I almost ignored it. But something about that tiny detail kept pulling me back. So I stepped closer. Ran my hand along the edge. And felt it. A gap. Small, but there. My heart started beating a little faster. I don't even know why. Maybe instinct. Maybe something deeper. I lifted the mirror carefully, and that's when I saw it. An envelope. Taped flat against the wall. Hidden. Deliberately hidden. Not lost. Not forgotten. Placed there. Like someone made sure it would never be found. My fingers hesitated for a second before pulling it down. It felt wrong. Like I was uncovering something I wasn't supposed to see. But at the same time, I couldn't stop. I turned it over slowly. And froze. My name was written on it. In ink. Not printed. Not typed. Written by hand. I stared at it, trying to recognize the handwriting. And then it hit me. I had seen it before. Years ago. On an old document my mom once showed me. My dad's signature. This was his writing. My chest tightened instantly. Because now, this wasn't just a hidden envelope. This was a message. From him. To me. And then I saw the date. 34 years ago. The exact day I was born. I stopped breathing for a second. Because suddenly, nothing made sense anymore. If he didn't care, why write me a letter? And if he did, why was it hidden? Why did my mom keep this from me? For my entire life. I looked around the room slowly. The same room I grew up walking into. The same mirror I passed every single day. All those years. It was right there. Within reach. And she never told me. Not once. That's when the feeling hit. Not just confusion. Not just shock. But something deeper. Something heavier. Because this wasn't just a secret. It was a decision. She chose to hide this. She chose to let me believe a version of my life. That might not have been true. For 34 years. I tightened my grip on the envelope. My hands slightly shaking now. Because whatever was inside wasn't just going to answer questions. It was going to change everything I thought I knew. And in that moment, I realized something I wasn't ready to accept. The biggest betrayal in my life. Might not have been my father leaving. It might have been the truth my mother never told me. I sat on the edge of the bed, the envelope still in my hands. I didn't open it. Not right away. Because as long as it stayed sealed, everything I believed about my life was still intact. Simple, clear, safe. My dad left. My mom stayed. End of story. But the second I opened it, that story could fall apart. And I wasn't sure I was ready for that. I turned the envelope over slowly, running my fingers across my name. The ink had faded slightly, but the handwriting was steady. Careful. Like every letter mattered. That didn't match the version of him I grew up with. The version that didn't care. Didn't stay. Didn't want to be part of my life. So why take the time to write this? Why make it this personal? The questions kept building, one after another. Too many to ignore. I stood up, pacing the room slowly, trying to quiet my thoughts. But the more I thought about it, the louder everything became. Every memory, every moment. The way my mom would shut down any conversation about him. The way his name just didn't exist in our house. No pictures, no stories, nothing. At the time, I thought that meant he didn't matter. Now, it felt like something else. Like something had been erased. On purpose. I stopped in front of the mirror again. The same place this letter had been hidden all these years. Right there, behind something I looked at every single day. And suddenly, it didn't feel like coincidence. It felt intentional. Like she wanted it close, but not too close. Safe, but unseen. That realization hit harder than anything. Because it meant she didn't just hide it. She chose where to hide it. I looked down at the envelope again. My grip tightened slightly. Because now this wasn't just curiosity anymore. This was something I needed to understand. Not later. Not eventually. Now. I took a slow breath, steadying myself. Because I knew once I opened it, there was no going back. No pretending. No holding on to the version of the truth I grew up with. Just whatever was inside. Raw and real. My fingers slid under the seal. Paused for a second. And then, I opened it. Because whatever my mom kept from me for 34 years. Asterisk, I was finally ready to face it. The paper inside was folded with care, like it had been protected all these years. I unfolded it slowly, my hands not as steady as I wanted them to be. And the first line stopped me cold. To my child. Not my name. Just that. Like he didn't even know who I would become yet, just that I existed. I swallowed hard and kept reading. If you're reading this, it means I didn't get the chance to be in your life the way I wanted to. My chest tightened instantly. That wasn't how someone writes when they don't care. That was how someone writes when they expect to be gone. I kept going, my eyes moving faster now. I want you to know, I didn't leave by choice. I froze. Read that line again. Slower. I didn't leave by choice. Everything in my head started pushing back against that. Because that wasn't the story I grew up with. That wasn't what I was told. I kept reading, even though part of me wanted to stop. There were things happening, things I couldn't control. And I was told it would be better for you if I stayed away. Better for me. That phrase hit hard. Because it sounded familiar. Like something my mom used to say, just in a different way. I felt my grip tighten on the paper. My heart racing now. I don't know what you'll be told about me, the letter continued, but I need you to understand this. I wanted to stay. That was the line that broke everything. Not loudly. Not all at once. But quietly, completely. Because you don't write that unless it's true. You don't say that unless it matters. I sat there, staring at the words, feeling something shift inside me. Years of belief, of certainty, starting to crack. I kept reading slower now. If you ever get the chance to question the story, please do. Trust yourself. A warning. That's what it felt like. Not just a message, but a warning. I lowered the paper slightly, staring ahead without really seeing anything. Because now, this wasn't just about him. This was about her. About every time she ended the conversation. Every time she told me he made a choice. Without ever explaining what that choice actually was. And now, I had his version. Careful, honest, real. And it didn't match hers. Not even close. I looked back down at the letter, my hands steady now, but heavier. Because the truth wasn't unclear anymore. It was right there. In ink. And the hardest part wasn't reading it. It was realizing what it meant. The story I grew up believing. was never the full story. And the person who made sure of that was the one I trusted the most. I read the last lines again, slower this time. If you ever question the story, trust your instincts. That was it. No explanation, no names, no details. Just a sentence that felt heavier than everything else combined. Because it didn't tell me what happened. It told me something wasn't right. I lowered the letter slightly, staring at the space in front of me. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel certain. I felt torn between two versions of the truth. The one I was raised with, and the one sitting in my hands. I thought about my mom, about everything she did for me. The sacrifices, the long hours, the way she held everything together on her own. That part was real. I knew it was. But now, there was something else. Something she never told me. Something she chose to hide. Not for a week. Not for a year. For 34 years. I looked around the room again, slowly. At the mirror. The exact spot where this letter had been hidden. Close enough to keep, but hidden enough to control. And suddenly, it all felt intentional. Not accidental. Not forgotten. A decision. She didn't throw it away. She didn't destroy it. She kept it. Which meant she knew it mattered. She knew it could change things. And she still chose not to tell me. That realization hit harder than anything in the letter. Because it wasn't just about what my dad wrote. It was about what my mom didn't say. I folded the paper carefully, my hands steady now. Not because I felt okay, but because something inside me had shifted. The confusion was still there. The questions, even more. But one thing was clear. The story I built my life on was incomplete. And maybe that was the truth she was trying to control. Not the past, but what I believed about it. I looked down at the envelope one last time. And for the first time, I didn't see it as something hidden. I saw it for what it really was. A truth that waited 34 years. Just to be seen. I didn't put the letter back behind the mirror. I couldn't. Because it was never meant to stay hidden, not anymore. I held it in my hands for a long time, just sitting there, letting everything settle. Not trying to solve it. Not trying to pick a side. Just feeling it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't sure what the truth was. And strangely, that felt more honest than anything I'd believed before. My mom was still the person who raised me. Who showed up? Who stayed? That didn't change. But now, there was another side. A voice I had never been allowed to hear. Until now. I stood up slowly and looked at the mirror one last time. The place where this truth had been hidden for decades. Close enough to find, but never meant to be seen. Then I walked out of the room. Letter in hand. Not with answers. But with something more important. The right questions. Because sometimes, the truth doesn't come all at once. Sometimes, it waits. Until you're ready to see it differently. And as I stepped forward, I realized my story wasn't what I was told. It was what I was finally starting to understand.